Hi, everyone.
Hi, Christy.
Hi. How is everybody?
Doing good.
Good.
Getting my notes set up here. Not the right page.
Hi, Kermit.
Hello.
Hi, Dick. Hi, Kelsey. Can everyone see that I'm in Evergreen, Colorado? I really am.
Cool.
Are you sure? Is that one of those fake backgrounds?
It actually is not.
Cool. That
Nice.
sounds fun.
It is fun. I'm with my best friend from high school, and it's about I don't know, 30 minutes west of Denver. Kelly saw this on Facebook today, but Kelly, when everyone's on, before we officially start the meeting, if you don't mind, I'll quick share my screen and show a new friend I met today.
We now return to our regularly scheduled broadcast.
I know. Okay, so I have to. So do we have a quorum here? I think we do.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So let's call the meeting to order. I'm just trying to see the participants again. There we go. Okay. So let's call the meeting to order. Do we have any proposed amendments to the minutes from the last meeting? I had one proposed amendment, and that is that I would just like to reiterate that I would really like to, on the sustainable purchasing policy discussions, I would really like to gather staff input into those, what the policy will be, because I think I anticipate some very good ideas and excitement about certain things, and I would certainly like to incorporate the staff feedback as appropriate into the policy. So that's my proposed. Does anyone else have anything else, Deb?
I sent a couple of edits to the minutes to both you and Kelly earlier today. Well,
Yep.
Got those? Okay.
Yep.
Good. Okay.
Okay. Kelly, do you want to mention those, or do you want me to?
Could you mention them? I could find them in my email.
Sure. Let me look for your email quick, Deb. It'll take me just a second.
I could find my email, I suppose.
No,
Too.
here it is. Okay. So Deb kindly sent the proposed amendments also. She says, hi, Kelly, SALT, the first thing is the SaltWise volunteer opportunity was canceled. And that Allison said she would reschedule and hope to get the MHS Green Team involved. The minutes state that there will be a $50 award gift with certificate, and the committee could spend $1,500 on the award and is willing to give out 10 awards to individuals. So therefore, the minutes should read, for individuals, there will be a $50 award gift with certificate. For businesses, there will be a plaque. For nonprofits, they will have a choice of receiving a plaque or donation of $50. Committee estimates spending could be up to $1,500 on award, and we hope to get at least 10 applications. So looking for a potential motion to approve those amendments or amend as is, or approve as is, excuse me.
I make a motion to amend the minutes as submitted.
Okay. Lisa?
Hi, thanks. I'm not sure what we're proposing to do with Deb's comment about the Saltwise event, because, I mean, other than like an editor's note that the event was canceled, is that what's being proposed?
I think so. That's my understanding. Deb, are you fine with that?
I only put that in there because I saw it was on the agenda and there's no update on it other than it was canceled. It doesn't have, it shouldn't be in the minutes.
Right.
Okay.
Wait, what do you mean it shouldn't be in the minutes? There's no change to last month's minutes?
Well, I don't think, was there anything in the minutes about Saltwise other than it was happening? And
Yeah.
that was true as of last month,
Right.
Right,
but we don't need to have it in this month's agenda because it didn't happen.
gotcha.
Well, the only thing you're changing on the minutes is the little bit about what we said for the award. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's the motion that I made, that we accept then your change to the minutes. And that only pertains to the changes you read, which Kelly has to correct for what we said about the award and the number of recipients and things like that.
Right.
Okay.
So I made that motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll
I'll
second.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And that includes Christie's amendment too, Dick?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting this.
That includes the amendment that Christie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The amendments that were suggested to the minutes, both of them, we're just clarifying what Deb was amending. So Christie's and the one that Deb made, I made a motion that those amendments that were submitted that the minutes be amended with those two suggestions. And I think I heard at least two seconds to that.
And I was understanding that and seconding that.
Okay. Thank you. So do we need to vote on approval or does that cover it?
I think I think we agreed that if there's no changes to the minutes, we're not going to vote on them. But
Right.
if there are amendments that are submitted, then we should all be
Okay.
agreeing
Yep.
to that.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Does
Concur.
everyone, oh, great, perfect, thank you. Does everyone, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Say aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye. Okay, any nays? Don't see any. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Next, we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening? Kevin, please go ahead.
Hi, I don't have anything extensive tonight, but I'm going to be staying on the meeting, but not participating or listening because we're celebrating my wife's birthday. But I do want to say that we have an election coming up in April. We're going to have at least 3, maybe 4 new council members. And those council members are already the current ones, and those are already being approached by city staff and the city administrator, Brian Gatto, to help prioritize aspects of the strategic plan, perhaps on an annual basis. And of course, you know, several of us think that climate change is a rather important one, and all the other good work the Sustainability Committee is doing. So I would just say that if you have an opportunity and the inclination that you try to find a way to find out where the candidates stand on those issues, and encourage them to support particularly the climate change aspects of the city's plans for the term of that they are in office, assuming they are elected. And if you find candidates you like that support those issues, then please talk to other people so they will support them as well. So those are districts 1, 3, 5, and 7 that are have elections. And of course, we're going to get a new mayor, and 2 current council members are running for the mayoral position. So it wouldn't hurt to ask them to be a little more specific on some of their thoughts with respect to climate change. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other public comments? I do not see any. So if not, we can move on to the staff report. Kelly.
I understand this is a question and answer period. So does
Oh,
anyone
okay.
have any question about the staff report?
I have a few questions myself. So Kelly, regarding the, that I am, hoping we get MG&E to switch out the street lights, and I appreciate you putting it on the staff report. Is there like a, I'm trying to understand how this works. So MG&E owns the light fixtures, the street lights, and then is there some sort of contract in place that they only replace them, the street lights with the LEDs when the incandescents burn out? Is there like is there something prohibiting putting the LEDs in, besides just the rate or the labor shortage or something? I just, here's what I feel like. I'll put it up front. I feel like where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm not feeling like with MG&E, there's a will, or at least a sense of urgency. And I know you're working on that in the coming months, with them very collaboratively. And I know this pressure we're putting on, I'm sure helps. Any further comments on it?
Well, they are replacing, when anything burns out, they replace it with an LED. But they only have like 1 staff person who does this. It's a limited staff. So they don't have the capacity to go out and replace everything, even if those lights haven't burned out yet, but to do it because we want them to. I suppose they're not super incentivized because it means that it would use less electricity. But I think the main thing is that they don't have the labor to do it all in bulk. Everyone wants it done in all the municipalities, but the rate that as it stands right now isn't super advantageous to pay back in a way that to change the fixtures or change what you need to change. It is expensive to do a huge retrofit. And it'd be great to have the rate changed to be more advantageous for cities, and that they have promised, or I know I shouldn't say promise, they've said that they'll make streetlights a part of their next rate case, and municipalities are in the process of waiting for the funding to be more to have more guidance on what funds we can access as a collaborative grant, so that we could maybe hire an outside contractor to do bulk replacements in chunks. And so those are the kind of the 2 angles that we're working on. We have a meeting with MG&E in mid-February to go over these things. So I can't really answer anything until that meeting. We just have to wait like 2 weeks before that meeting.
Okay, makes sense. Dominic.
I have 2 questions. I hope they're quick questions. First question was on the Acker Farm development. Am I remembering correctly that was the project that required a rezoning from the city? And if so, the question is, has the city approved their rezoning? And then the second question, if I can just quickly spit it out, had to do with capital carryover. Was there anything relevant to kind of the scope of our work in capital carryover from 2022 budget to 2023 budget?
First, about the capital carryover, there's a lot of things that are being carried over by the planning department in general for all of us, planners and sustainability. The solar projects are being carried over. The electrification money for EV charging infrastructure is being carried over. What else was there? I just had to fill out this form for that. I can send you our internal form that we use to send to Bill Burns. He's taking that to council for approval the first Tuesday in February. So
Maybe it'd be more appropriate. Was there anything not in capital carryover that should be, that we would like to see in capital carryover?
not that I know of. I think everything that we are working on was carried over, or hopefully will be.
Thank you.
And then you asked about, and what was the first question? Sorry.
Acker Farms, I
Oh,
believe
Acker.
required a
Yeah.
rezoning.
Right, okay, yeah, they're calling that Red Tail Ridge is the name of it now, but people still call it Acre Farm. And I think that their rezoning was approved. There's so many steps for development projects that I don't always know which things have happened yet, but there's an important meeting that will have a fairly hearty discussion, I think, at Plan Commission. In the staff report, I can scroll down to find the date for that. If you went to that meeting, you wouldn't be able to speak, or there's no public comments or anything, but it would probably be a great meeting to listen in on, to get the latest on that project.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic. Kermit?
Yeah, thanks. One, going back to the streetlights, were you ever able to get a little more clarity on what the street light tariff entails and how that is an impediment to the progress? Because I see it noted in your report that they're going to consider changes, but what is the I mean, I have a couple other questions, but that's one, going back to streetlights.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just don't think I understand the language or understand it enough to explain it right now. I meant to get the elevator speech on that. It's been explained to me many times, and I just always understand it when someone's explaining it.
I mean, my fuzzy understanding is it's kind of like you get a free cell phone with your cell service, but you're paying a monthly bill. And so it's like they're giving you the lights, but they have the cost of replacing and maintaining them built into the charge for the electricity.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, I'm kind of wanting to get that clarified or confirmed, but that's the best understanding I've had so far. So okay, so we don't know for sure, and all we know is that there is an issue related to it, and the PSC is going to have to review things at some point if we're going to get this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we could always put forth grant money to go ahead and change out the lights. It's just that the fee that we're paying, probably,
Yeah,
we want to change that fee. So there's two parts to getting this done, and they're not necessarily I mean, they're related, but they're two
Right.
separate things we need to do. And that is true that they own, or some we own and they maintain, and some they own. It's a combination in the city.
okay.
Do they require different situations then in terms of who, the ones that we own versus the one that they own? You know, they require different, monies and contracts and labor and people and all that to get them switched out?
I don't know how MGE, like what their internal contract situation is with how they manage that. some of that is explained in our energy plan because Slipstream looked at that and explained sort of what should happen, which is on our sustainability website. And I'm not sure if we could get someone from NGE to come on the meeting and just talk, maybe to help explain this so it's out of their mouths. Because it's clear that everyone really wants to understand all the details of the streetlights.
Yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I think it's important that we understand it enough to make sure we're getting a good deal, that we don't get, unfair charges left in, especially if we start putting in capital to pay for the lights, in which case, if the tariff includes amortization payment schedule for changing the hardware, and they're not paying for the hardware because we use the grant to get it, they shouldn't be getting that money. So that's where I'm concerned. I just want to make sure that we aren't getting ripped off once that gets worked out. So we need to understand what the deal is.
Okay.
Okay, and then I was noticing block power being mentioned under the Energy Innovation Grant Program. And I've heard some interesting, encouraging things about them, so I'm excited that they're being worked with. I also was wanting to just throw into the mix, in case you're haven't heard of them. This was a group that I found out about at the Wisconsin Academy of Science, Arts and Letters Climate Change Conference. I don't know whether you may have bumped into the Green Homeowners United. And they, at least from my conversation with them, struck me as having a similar vision to what Block Power has in terms of helping support the transformation of residential housing from climate disastrous energy to cleaner energy. And because they're locally based, local, like in the state, I guess I'd offer that as another resource to reach out to and see how they might be able to provide some local support and perspective from the one business card I had from them was West Dallas, Wisconsin, for their address. So I can get that information to you, Kelly.
Yeah, I think I went to the workforce talk, I believe, and they were one of the speakers.
Oh,
and
good.
really interesting and really great. I don't know if they do the same like data aggregation tool as Block Power, which is the thing that I would really like to have, but also I would love to work with them. So I did make a note to reach out to them to see if there's any way we could partner in the future.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And that's it for now. I see. Dick still has his-
I was accidentally on mute. Kermit, do you have something more? I said,
I was
Dick,
just gonna say, I see Dick has his
I
hand
know.
up.
I said, Dick, you're up next, and then nobody's moving. Yeah,
Okay, I didn't hear. I was just sitting here.
that's because it was my
I
fault.
was I was so enamored with listening to Kermit that I fell asleep. No, actually, Kermit,
You've been
I think
hypnotized.
I was hypnotized, mesmerized. I think you raised a really good point. I mean, that was one reaction I had about this block, whatever. This Brooklyn, New York. I mean, my gosh, don't we have somebody that's more Midwest and more local and Wisconsin, whatever. So that was just a reaction to what Kermit brought up, that if there are companies in Wisconsin that are doing services that would benefit us, I'd like to see us keep it more local. My main questions were related to the issue brought up at the very beginning about the streetlights. I've been asking about this for all the years, 5 years or more I've been on this commission, and it keeps coming up, and I feel like I'm never really knowing what's going on. And somebody, I forget who it was, did some great stuff, putting it in the chat. Tony Bross, so I would like, because our next meeting is the 20th of February. And I think that's after your meeting with the Dane County and other communities talking about this MG&E streetlight thing. I would like to suggest that we put on the agenda a real agenda item that gives us good information about our street lighting in the city. How much are we paying for it, the use of it, whether it's fees for just the lights or whether it's electricity usage, and get some idea of the scope of the benefits, the scale of the benefits that we would get if we converted to LEDs as far as the energy reduction. So I'd like to see that discussed, and with all this detail that Tony put out here. I really feel like we brought this topic up many times and we batted around, well, it'd be nice to do it kind of thing, but I don't feel like we're learning anything as a committee. Okay, so that was just a comment. On the Acre farm, I thought it was Acre, not Acker, but I could be wrong. I've been saying Acre all along, which is now a different one. I'm really curious because Deb and I put a lot of effort into reviewing that for our committee. And we had one recommendation that there be no outlet on Pheasant Branch Road because it is a terribly narrow road, hilly, bad sight lines, real pinch points, can't even get off the edge to walk on it. And just having a whole nother subdivision dumping out there just feels like a nightmare. And then you go on up to how's it going to intersect with what's the main Century? Is it going to come right out to where old Pheasant Branch Road did with no traffic light, just a stop sign? Or is it going to go through that tortuous maze up there by the Prairie Cafe and work its way out to that light where there's hardly any room to put cars to the light? So I would like to know if any of our recommendations that we put a lot of time and thought into have been not only considered, but incorporated in what they would be doing. So those are two things that I wanted to bring up related to the staff report.
How about next, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, Kelly.
How about next meeting, I invite MGE and Bill Byers from the city who deals with the streetlights and Sean Stowski. And we can ask all the questions and hopefully we'll have feedback from that mid-February meeting with MGE. And then if there's action that the committee would like to take to recommend to council, you could do that as a next step, perhaps.
Yeah,
Because, okay.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm hoping for. After your big meeting with all the different people in the county, this has got to get pushed. And if MG&E's got one person to do it, it'll never get done. And so do we take some of the federal money, stimulus money that's coming our way on renewable energy and all this stuff and start moving on it ourselves? Otherwise, it's going to take 10, 15 years. So
we do plan to do that, but we do not know yet which grant program to apply for or the scope of that. It's, it takes a while collaboratively with other cities with the guidance isn't out on those, the funds yet. So there's certain things like we can't do yet as much as we want to. It's like a hurry up and wait on some of it, but we'll try to
I think it would be valuable just to get an idea for new committee members, committee members, just how many lights, what kind of expenses are we paying for both the rental or the use of, and then the electricity, and how much electricity that could be saved, so that we get some idea what the benefit is. And
we do have that information. It's in our energy plan. It's all laid out down to the dollar amounts and kilowatts used by the streetlights, how many we have. It's all in there. So I do recommend that all committee members read through our energy plan, because a lot of our baseline energy information and recommendations and cost savings and energy reduction stats and data is in that plan.
Can you send us the link to that? Because I'm sure I was aware of it some time ago, but with COVID, my mind has gone into a fog, and so I need to be reminded of what these things are. So, and that'll
Yes.
help me get ready for the next meeting if we have it as a real topic.
And just real quickly piggybacking on that, sorry to jump in, but just to clarify that you're talking about the slipstream report.
Yes, it was.
Okay,
it
and
was-
that's also on the sustainability website, I think you were saying earlier. Okay.
Yes, and it's
so-
our seminal document for our
Right.
energy priorities.
Okay. Thank you. So I believe Dominic is next and then Lisa. If I'm wrong, please tell me.
Well, we get any answer on my questions about the
Oh.
subdivision?
Oh, sorry, Doris Dick, sorry.
I think I can, that's why I raised my hand, actually, if it's okay. Dominic, to jump
Sure.
ahead of you. Okay. First of all, it is Acre Farm, so you are correct, Dick, but it also is being referred to as Red Tail Ridge, because that's probably what it's going to be called. So the whole Pheasant Branch Road issue, I attended the Plan Commission hearing and spoke about that. There were a lot of residents from Old Creek Road, if you know where that is. They were there as a big group, expressing, agreeing with the Sustainability Committee's comments about not having an outlet onto Pheasant Branch Road. So, the message was heard by the Plan Commission. They did ask some questions about it, and the traffic impact analysis is what we're waiting for now. It should be out sometime in the next month or two. And depending on what we learned from that, we may have more of an opportunity to it might support the committee's recommendation. It might not. It'll basically boil down to that. I will tell you, I've heard from constituents in the Middleton Ridge and Misty Valley neighborhood that they don't like the idea of all the traffic coming through on Bellefontaine Boulevard once it goes out to Parmenter. And also the town of Springfield has expressed concern about traffic on Greenbrier Road, and they're prepared to put a cul-de-sac in if it gets to the point where there's, a huge amount of traffic coming through. So it's a great recommendation. I have explained to constituents why the committee made that recommendation and why High Road is a different kind of road and Bellefontaine Boulevard, different kind of road than Pheasant Branch Road. But, it's 50-50 that that recommendation will be taken.
Well, the only thing is about Pheasant Branch Road, you can't even go out there anymore, find places to park to go to the Conservancy, unless you go all the way up to the far parking lot. So there's gonna have to be access issues related to the Conservancy with even more people there, but just being able to walk along the edge of the road or something, it's gonna have to be a widened road rather than looking like a town road until it gets into the city, and even then the city doesn't have the space to expand it. So I'm glad to see that at least the part of our transportation committee, I guess in the city, is gonna be reviewing it, because it feels like it's already a dangerous situation. I can't imagine 600 new homes with half the people wanting to go out on Pheasant Branch Road.
Well, if I could just add one more thing, it would be to reiterate that every council meeting has an opportunity for members of the public to comment, and it's important for council members to hear this. Also, a lot of we forwarded it from the Sustainability Committee, but you're all residents and voters and have friends and neighbors in the city. So I encourage you to try to hammer home this point. And we do have 4 seats up for election, and the prospective members, some of them are unopposed, so they will be elected, but a lot of these folks are starting to attend council meetings. And so it would be good for them to hear this concern expressed as well.
Good point, Lisa. Okay, Dick, does that answer your question? Good. Okay, Dominic.
I just wanted to spin back to the other part of Dick's question. I think it was regarding impact of the streetlights. Really quick back of the envelope calculation. Thank you, Tony, in the ether for sharing some of the information you gathered from Sean Stowski. The punchline, Dick, is this looks like the streetlights all in could maybe be like a 10 metric ton per year CO2 impact. Round numbers, 10 metric tons per year. For context, one of the fleet vehicles, an SUV running about 12,000 miles per year, so reasonably high use. That's about 8 metric tons per year of fuel emissions, just round numbers. So getting all the streetlights clicked over, round numbers back of the envelope, please don't quote me, but I think my math's right. It's about one vehicle.
Okay, so not as much as we might have thought.
I mean, 10 metric tons is 10 metric tons. It's a lot of emissions, or a lot of CO2, but there's a lot to be reduced.
Mhm.
I guess I was just remembering it to be a larger share of our electrical energy expenses in the city, and I was assuming that switchover would be quite a savings. But again, we'll have to look at the slipstream report and just get a review of all this, maybe, and have it really put together on some sheets of materials for the next meeting in February. I'd like to see that. So.
Right, and I do think that there's the financial angle. I was mostly speaking to the climate change angle, which are related, of course.
Mhm.
Kermit, I see you have something to comment on this.
Yeah, I was kind of piggybacking on what we've been talking about, like, oh, how big of an impact is the streetlight thing going to make? How big of an impact is something else going to make? I came across this very helpful visual chart that Kelly, you used in your PowerPoint presentation. I think it was to Mad City Baxter's, if I remember. And basically it's Middleton's relative carbon impact of energy city operations. And it shows in major categories and areas the relative size of the impact. And my request is that we perhaps use this as a helpful reference and framing document to map our projects into that same grid. So for instance, streetlights is maybe 1/10 of the total, just trying to do a little visual conversion to math. And for what it's worth, I could share screen to pop that up. But anyways, then the question I have is, okay, well, what if we change all the lights? What's the impact on the size of that rectangle? Is it going to go half as big, 1/3 as big? And also, like, for instance, I noticed the well pumps and lifts are like the largest single city source of carbon pollution. And we have some projects going in that are going to impact that. And I think it would be helpful to be able to visualize that impact relative to our solar energy pump stations. And similarly for other projects that we're looking at, I think some of us are willing to play on the back of the envelope with numbers like Dominic, and sometimes on a good day me. But I think a visual representation, I think, is very powerful for helping us pick and choose and understand what we're getting. And I guess the way I turned that into a question is that something that you think you could do? And if so, thank you.
You mean produce that visual?
Right, or use the visual you produced and then have an overlay for it to show what the like, would putting in the pump station solar reduce the size of that rectangle by 10%, 1%, 50%, and similarly for the street lights and for the fleet, because again, the fleet is shown as being just a little bit larger than the street lights in terms of total carbon impact. And so I find that interesting also, given Dominic's back of the envelope calculation, whether there's something we're missing or something. But anyways, I'm thinking this could be a helpful feedback tool for us to use in evaluating and prioritizing going forward and telling our story to others about what impacts we're making.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need a little more direction on what exactly you're wanting. If I do go down that road, then we have to decide what I can't work on, which is fine. But it takes a while we have all this data and we have it presented in different visual ways. And then to take the data we already have and then retool it to look different, like, I don't know how much data manipulation you want me to do to put it into the visual that you want, and the time that takes, when we already do have a lot of visuals and we have a lot of the energy information in this report that talks about what the cost would be, what the savings would be. A lot of that data is in that energy report. Like, read the energy
Right.
report first, and then
Yeah.
we can evaluate what are the gaps or what am I really not understanding. And then maybe we could bring in Slipstream to help
Yeah.
talk about that data more, rather than me trying to take the data we worked for years to put together and then retool it so it just looks different, but it's the same data. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how deep to go into all the data stuff.
Right. Yeah, and what I'm trying to do is find a way that we can easily visualize and assess together what we're doing and what the impacts of what we're doing are, because those kind of visuals help. And I like what you have here with the Middleton's relative carbon impact of energy chart, and it's instantly tells a story that I think is significant. And I'm just thinking, if we can map the reductions of any of our given proposals and projects onto that, it would be helpful. And if we want to touch base outside of the meeting and just brainstorm about it or talk a little bit further, I'm not sure. I may not be understanding how hard it would be for you or an intern to do it, and you may be misunderstanding what I'm asking for and making it a bigger project than it really is, or that I'm really intending. So we can continue offline.
Okay.
Thank you. Good points. So Kelly, would you mind flashing up the agenda again? Thank you.
Just a second.
No problem.
Oh gosh. After all this time.
Yeah, no problem. Kermit, here, we'll distract. We'll do a little. Kermit, your hand's still up, so
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
no problem.
Do you see update on Acker Farm at
Yep.
the top? Okay.
We see, you're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone else have, I think we had a really good discussion. Thank you, everyone, on, Kelly's staff report. Before we close that out, we do want to get to the work initiatives, but before we close that out, anything else for Kelly? Q&A. I don't see anything. Okay. Well, let's move on then, please, to the committee work initiatives. Sustainable purchasing plan. Thank you, Lisa, for sending out a draft earlier today. do you want to, talk about a summary about it? Do you want to give any comments on the meeting?
Sure. And Kelly, I don't know if you have that document. I can show it if I guess I can share my screen. Nope, it says I cannot. Oh, because you're sharing. Let me try again. Okay, now I have to find it. Here it is. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Sorry I wasn't able to send this document out much sooner, but it is what it is. So we've had this was part of our work plan for a year ago, because we got the directive in December of 2021, and this question actually is what propelled me into the race for District 6 alders. So that's the history of this particular task. But we got this directive from council. We wrote it into the 2022 Sustainable City Plan to do an update to our sustainable purchasing policy / plan. It's labeled a policy, but it reads more like a plan, like an implementation plan. Originally Christy and Spencer and I were on the subgroup, and now we lost Spencer because he's no longer on the committee. So it's just Christy and me, and we've both been bogged down in other stuff. So appreciate the Wisconsin 350 group continuing to press us on this particular task. And I'm happy to say I finally have some time to devote to this, and I think Christy does too. However, we would welcome a third person if anybody wants to join us. Anyway, so what I've been thinking about, Kelly had shared some examples of sustainable purchasing policies in other cities or templates that groups have developed. And one of the challenges is that some of these templates apply to the case where a city is big enough that it has its own procurement office, and we don't have that. Everybody or every department buys its own stuff, and that is something actually that we need to research as we work on this. Is who are the people who actually do the purchasing, because they're the ones that we need to talk to and make sure that we're writing an implementation plan that will be useful to them. But I put together this 2-pager to show the city endorsed actions that we are trying to achieve. You may recall that, I'm big into making sure that the plans that we write here in Middleton get implemented and don't just sit on a shelf. So not that they do, but there's a lot of stuff in a lot of plans, and some of it is not moving forward. So I'm trying to tie this back to the Sustainable City Plan from 2022, which itself drew from the energy plan that we were just talking about, the slipstream plan, the council directive that we got in December of 21. And then I know the impetus for redoing the sustainable purchasing plan is the concern over climate change. As long as we're in the process of updating it, this is also an opportunity to work in this action from the Sustainable City Plan to make the shift from in refrigerants, so that we're using refrigerants that aren't as harmful when it comes to climate change. The comprehensive plan of 2021 has a big strategy in the Green City chapter related to eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. And this is important. The rapidly switching from fossil fuel sources, that wording is really important, because if you look at the resolution that we all point to all the time, the resolution to address global warming through clean energy, it talks about making the shift in city operations to these targets by these years, but we need to meet city operations with the energy needs with clean renewable sources. That's actually different, or one could argue that's different than switching from fossil fuels. So I just point that out. Whoops, that's not supposed to happen. So those are the actions we're trying to achieve. That's what we're tying this back to. Then I thought about, what do we need? What do we have to produce to, finish this task? And the first thing we need is a policy that is separate from the 10-page plan that we got from the consultant in 2017. I like the Responsible Purchasing Network for the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. Maybe I typed that wrong, but I think that is the title. Anyway, they have a very nice template. It's I think it's more than 3 pages long, but again, it's written so that, like, you know, they want to have like a whole task force or, you know, standing committee, some, you know, way more infrastructure internally than we will ever have because of the size of our city. So once we cut that out, I think this template will do nicely for us. We need an implementation plan. And I'm putting the page amounts in here because I'm mindful of, you know, my reaction when I get a document to read or, you know, learn. And, you know, if it's 50 pages long, it's going to be a while before I get through it. Probably not going to consult it. I think we need to keep these documents as short and manageable and helpful as possible. So we can use a lot of the content from the 2017 policy as the implementation plan. You know, I mentioned earlier, it reads like an implementation plan. It needs to be updated to reflect the 2021 comprehensive plan, because when it was written, that update hadn't been prepared. The sustainable city plan was different back then. It was more metric oriented, like gallons of water saved, or, you know, things like that. And it needs to be consistent with whatever policy we develop. And it needs a prominent new section about greenhouse gas emissions, so that we can really focus on greening the fleet. I mean, if you read through the implementation or the plan right now, there's nothing about like the high impact, high cost and high impact purchases that are the ones we really need to be targeting more than, say, the cleaning supplies that we're buying, right? That's important, but it's not as important whether we're buying, you know, 30% recycled paper towels or 50% recycled. What's more important is making the shift to shift away from internal combustion engine equipment and vehicles. And as I mentioned, we can also address refrigerants. And I definitely want to keep this no longer than 10 pages. So if we have a 10-page plan and we rewrite it and add a big chunk of information, we obviously have to cut something out, and that, I think that's doable. We also should have a resolution. Council always does things by resolution, so I was a little surprised when I looked back at the past council meeting packets from 2016 and 2017, and there did not appear to be a resolution related to the 2017 policy adoption. So that's something we can write from scratch, 1 page, easy. A press release. So if this gets approved, we should be ready to go with a press release that the city can send out to, you know, our 2 or 3 news sources in the area, but also to interested residents and put on the city website. And I think thinking ahead to a press release, it would be good to include some, you know, some quotes that everybody knows. Quotes in press releases aren't really quotes. They're things that people, you know, craft. So we can have some nicely crafted quotes from people like Kelly as the coordinator and Christy as the chair, and the Alder rep, Brian Gatto, our city administrator, maybe the mayor, maybe our students. You know, we can work on that. And then the idea for the website that actually came from the policy template that I mentioned, and they have actually 2 different types of websites that they recommend. One is an internal one where you know, all the department heads or whoever is in charge of purchasing things for the department, they can go and click on a link to whoever our vendor of, you know, like Staples or whatever, wherever we've got our contracts. I don't know if we even participate in the state, you know, in the state purchasing collaborative for anything. That's something I need to find out. And then also links to tools for assessing environmental impact and or life cycle costs, like the Falcon tool. They also recommend an external page. This one wouldn't have vendor links, but it would be a way to publicize what the city is doing. I see this as maybe either a link on the Sustainability Committee website or just a blurb on that website. So depending on what we think the purpose is of having a website, informing the public or supporting the staff, we either have external or internal website. The timeline that I'm proposing, because I recognize, it has been over a year since we got this directive. This month, if you all are comfortable with this concept, it would be great to, the concept and the timeline, it would be great to get the committee's thumbs up so that we can proceed. Next month, Christy had mentioned her desire to incorporate the feedback or the input of city staff and Brian Gatto. So if the committee approves next month, we would hold those meetings, talk about, what their goals are, what our goals are, what the city's stated policies are, and begin to draft the policy and the resolution to go with it. And then at our committee's next meeting on February 20th, we would discuss the draft policy and the resolution and ideally get your approval. In March, the subgroup would continue to hold meetings with the city staff as we work on the implementation plan, and we'd get the press release drafted. So at our March 20th meeting, you all would review those two documents and I hope approve them. And then in April, the committee, I think, should be the one to present the policy plan and resolution to the council for approval at the meeting on April 4th. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. If we are successful, then the staff could issue, either Kelly or Brian, or Kelly working through Brian, issue the press release, later that week. Council meets on Tuesdays, of course. And then following up on all that action, the staff would develop whatever website. I hope we would have an intern. Kelly, I hope we'll have an intern on board to help with that. And then it kind of turns, now it's the rest of these action items are not ours, but I put them in there because I just want to show like what my vision is for the follow-up. And we develop a new policy and plan. What happens next? I see the responsibility has to be the city administrators to direct the staff to follow the policy, whatever it is. So that would happen starting in May in time for the budget kickoff, because we'd want budget narratives and decisions on upcoming, especially big purchases, to reflect this policy that we're now trying to get everyone to follow. So that would happen in May. And I'm happy to talk with Brian about that. He and I he meets with each alder quarterly, so we can talk about that when I meet with him next. And then depending on whether or not I'm reappointed to the finance committee, I see the finance committee having a role of asking questions or making comments as the staff, as we go through the budget meetings with the different departments. There's an opportunity to ask, have you been, how did this policy help you shape your purchase requests? Things like that. And then because all of our plans, including the Sustainable City Plan, they always include some sort of timeline for giving an annual update or an annual report on progress to council. I just put in there that, if this all goes according to the draft timeline, the first annual report on implementation progress would take place in April of 2024. And right now, like I said, Christy and I are the two subgroup members. Now, before I open it up for comments or questions or edits, I just wanted to mention the timing of the approval. So I had thought, I think one could argue that strategically, it would be good to have council discuss this at the final meeting of March, because by April 4th, everybody, that's the day of the election. So a decision, a vote on this purchasing policy is not going to be reflected in people's decisions on election day, if you get what I'm saying. So I thought about trying, I originally had it backed up so that March 21st, when council meets, the committee would pitch the idea of approving this new policy. I really don't think it's feasible though. So it's unfortunate because I think it could make a difference in how some people vote on approving the policy and the plan. But I don't know about Christie, but I just can't imagine squeezing in all the meetings. The writing is one thing, it's the finding the time to meet with everybody and digest their feedback that I struggle with. So we can try, if the committee really wants us to try to back it up to March, the March 21st meeting of council, but I know my limitations and I really think April 4th is more doable. All right, so I've said enough. I'd love to hear thoughts, comments. And while people are getting ready to raise their hands, I'll address Christie's comment from earlier today on here, who will do all the data tracking. Christie, I think you're referring to parts of this first action. This action has like 4 or 5 things in it. Only one of them, the purchasing sustainable products part of it, that's the only part that pertains to this particular activity.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I hear you and I get it. And we had a similar discussion when this item was in the sustainable city plan. It is, like I said, it's like 5 separate actions bunched up into one. So we're just focusing on this part of it. And the rest of it will be dealt with later.
Yeah. And then my comment at the bottom, max 10 pages, could be less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could be few. Okay. Oh, Laura.
Yeah,
Again,
I just had
the same color as your wall, but I'll try to see.
all right, I'll change that, make it a little darker, lighter or something. Anyway, I was just for clarification, I see when it says purchasing sustainable products to kind of go back to what we were talking about last time with the fleet. Does that include new police cars, or are we just talking about like consumable products? I mean, how all encompassing, I guess, is this?
It absolutely does. And, again, going back to the history, in December of 2021, I was chairing this committee and I made a pitch to council. I took the direction from the committee to council to ask them to hold off on any purchases of vehicles in January of 2022, because we were concerned that the city's sustainable purchasing plan was not being implemented and it wasn't reflected in the requests from various departments to buy internal combustion engine vehicles. I don't think there was even a hybrid proposed at that time. I know there wasn't an EV proposed because we made the point that like 10 years earlier, council had received a recommendation from staff, not the sustainability committee, from staff to buy its first EV, and they voted it down. They asked for the recommendation, they got it, and they said, no, we're not going to do it. And then here it comes again. We still don't have an EV 10 years later. And so it was that issue of greening the fleet that caused the committee to talk to council about this in the first place. And it was the voting down of our very modest request for just a 1-month hiatus, because we really would have scrambled, Christy and Spencer and I would have scrambled to review this policy and come up with a recommendation by the end of January. And council voted it down. And I believe the only person who voted in favor of our request was Katie Nelson, who was the alder on the committee at the time. Everybody else voted no. And it was that night that I said, well, if we want to change things, we got to change people who are voting. And I decided to run. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks. That kind of speaks, like you said, to the urgency and kind of pushing it forward and the scope
Yep.
of it. Thank you. That answers my
Yep.
question.
And I don't want to like belittle the idea of, being concerned about the recycled paper or fiber content in our paper products, or moving away from paper products to reusable, or, that's all important, and it's all part of sustainability. And, plastics, getting away from single-use plastics helps on the petroleum front. But it really is surprising that the current plan from 2017, which by the way is really not being followed as far as we've been able to determine, and has not been for years. It's surprising that there wasn't a big chunk of the document devoted to your biggest ticket, the most money you'll spend and the most impact you're going to have on the environment will come from your cars, your vehicles. So let's put that first, and that's what we're trying to fill in.
Thank you.
Dick,
Well, I have to say, this is a tremendous amount of work and thought you've put into this, Lisa, and I really think it's a good thing that you're doing it, and it's something we need. I'm questioning whether trying to push this through to a vote while this current makeup of the alders and the current mayor are on is going to get a lot of pushback. And I'm not a planner, I'll admit right up front, but I can see the value in what you're doing here, and I know you've put a lot of thought into this. So I would certainly support forging ahead. No, I do not want to be a subgroup member. I'm already working on enough other things. I'll be happy to nominate some other people that I can see nice pictures of, but I think this is something that should definitely be prioritized for have a subgroup to move ahead with it. I question whether you're going to want to push it forward before the election. It feels like if you've got 4 new alders coming on and a new mayor, there's going to be some time that you're going to have to hold their hands and really help them understand the importance of this, rather than having it in place and all of a sudden they come in and this is the new way of doing things. That's all my comment. I just think it's really valuable what you're doing, and we should, as a committee with an active subgroup that likes working on plans and have ways of thinking on this, should definitely take it on.
Thanks, Dick. I see your point about the compressed time frame here. This can be something that the new council votes on. I don't have a problem with that. I think the real deadline is making sure that it's done in time for Brian Gatto and Bill Burns to give this direction to remind staff or department heads as they're putting together their budgets to be mindful of this policy that council has approved. And that will happen in June. And so that's why I want to make sure by then there's a policy that he can point to. As to whether or not, I honestly feel like, the 2 mayoral candidates are current alders, so they understand this already. The rest of the council, I just spent almost a year on chairing the finance committee, and I don't really think much about how, it's just not on our radar how departments are going about their daily business. Does that make sense? So I don't think this would be confusing or overwhelming for the new members, even if we, waited until the second meeting or the first meeting of May. I don't think it would be overwhelming for them. And they're gonna, what's gonna be overwhelming is all the onboarding that I'm hoping they'll have on things like all the different, the comprehensive plan, the strategic plan, the sustainable city plan, the 2018 resolution on renewable energy. They're going to have a lot to learn, these folks. And I had to laugh when you said they're gonna need handholding, because I'm still in my first year on council. I feel like someone's got to be holding my hand, and all the people who are holding my hand, they're gonna be gone, so. But I think, yeah, I mean, I would like to try to hit the dates in this document, in this timeline, but if we can't do it for whatever reason, I think it's okay to wait until the new council is seated. I can tell you though, I have a feeling I'm more comfortable predicting the vote if we had the current council vote. I really don't know what to think if we wait until the new council is seated, because I don't know their positions.
Okay, Kermit.
Yeah, couple of thoughts for perhaps discussion or reflection. One, related to Dick's observation or concern. I think the sequence is thoughtful and spot on as far as the timeline milestones. The timeline, I hear you saying you bumped it out because you thought it would have been too aggressive, and I'm concerned that it still is perhaps too aggressive. Not that I'm going to talk you out of shooting for it. If you think you can do it, I will cheer you on. And but at the same time, not want us to rush things in a way that we get across the finish line, but we get across with the wrong result. Like we and especially, acknowledging Christie's cheerleading or highlighting the importance of dialogue with staff and getting meaningful input from them. That's going to, the more people you have working on it or providing input, the longer it takes. And ideally, the better the outcome, because you're processing that. So you get, you have less time implementing, you have more buy-in up front. And the problem is that getting that buy-in, getting that participation up front is going to take more time. And I'm concerned about navigating that.
Yeah.
So that's, so anyways,
Yeah.
as far as that goes, I guess
I might jump in real quick, Lisa, and say thank you for pointing that out. I'm glad people are hearing me, and thank you, Lisa, for your really hearing me on that. And Kermit too. I will say though that I'll put this expectation out there, and Lisa really hasn't heard me say this part either, that it's really important to me to get the input, but at some point we can't get input for 2 years. And I anticipate gathering input, but I don't anticipate Lisa and I and this committee agreeing on all the input. So there will have decisions that we'll have to make that we wouldn't incorporate some input, but I'm sure we'll come up with ideas that we haven't even thought of. So it'll go both ways. But I think it's a valid point, like, and something for you and I to keep in mind, Lisa. We don't want to, get input for infinity here. At some point, we just have to make a decision where we feel good about and move forward. So go ahead. I think you had something else.
Well, I was going to agree with Kermit about, respect for the timeline, understanding this is not going to be very simple. Some of it will be writing, and I write all the time, so I'm not daunted by that. I think relying on, that's why I led with the city endorsed actions, because to some extent the input gathering process with the staff, city staff, we can shortcut a lot of it by pointing to, these are the things that council has approved. These are city policies. So how can we turn this into action? How would you suggest we codify in a plan and a policy getting to these things? We don't have to spend a lot of time persuading them that this is the right thing to do, because it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. What matters is this is the city's policy. So, and it's our job to figure out how to update the current plan to make it something that's easier for the staff to implement.
Okay, Kermit, did you have another comment?
Yeah, and along those lines, I think it's going to be crucial to figure out how to make staff's life easier rather than harder. So from their input and from the frame that we're approaching them with, I think is like, okay, this is what you have been tasked with doing. As you summarized, the different policy positions that have been approved. We want to help you achieve that. How can we make this happen? So I think that's an important frame to use in the dialogue with the staff. Just make sure that they understand we are on their side in terms of getting the city's goals accomplished. And the additional thought I have or question perhaps is perhaps something comes up further in the process, but are we looking at providing a list of rules or questions to ask in a purchasing process? Or are we wanting to see if there's a tool out there, a service perhaps, I don't know, a sustainable Amazon for cities, something that pre-screens and pre-filters so that we don't need to put a bunch of additional checklist questions onto individual staff to say, okay, well, how much carbon do they use? Well, how much recycled stuff do they use? And is there something out there that we can piggyback on? And not just even in terms of policy documents, but it seems like this is something to be ripe for some sort of online processing, relying on data and screening and certifications that we shouldn't need to do ourselves. We shouldn't need to ask staff to do. It should be something that's out there that we can tap into.
Yep.
And so I guess whether that constitutes a recommendation for a direction to explore, or that's just food for thought, I offer that because we're not the only ones that are grappling with how we're going to do sustainable purchasing, how we're going to include that principle applied up and down this, from purchasing services like electricity to purchasing trucks to purchasing paper towels.
Good point.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's a very good point. I actually wrote that down, Kermit. I like that.
Okay.
Okay, Dick.
I really like your point, Christie, that getting staff input. I mean, I think we look at what the school district did with how hard the students had to work for a couple of years to get them to actually pass a resolution. And just having a resolution or a plan, if you don't have the buy-in of those that have to implement it, it's just going to be one mess and frustration and not real progress. So I think getting staff buy-in, and so I would ask, actually, with my question, I'd actually like Kelly to respond to how she thinks this is going to go over with staff, because you are sitting in a whole bunch of staff meetings. You know these department heads, and you talk with them offline and in meetings. And do you feel like that there's an inertia issue here that's going to have to be overcome, and we want to do it in a way that is going to not have any real pushback?
I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just hoping we learn more when we have our first conversations. I don't know how purchasing is set up in different departments. I think it's very different in different departments. So, maybe the first few months are difficult because they're looking at new vendors for things, and that seems like a headache. But then once you've made the switch, it's no more difficult than it ever was. So yeah, I'll be interested to hear what staff thinks.
Is there a way to preface the fact that we as a committee and with a subgroup are doing this and wanting to do this and feeling the reason why we need to do it. Is there a way to talk with department heads or people's and staff meetings and let them know we can't continue doing business as we've been doing it, or we'll never meet the goals that our community wants and what we need as a society? So to try to let them know that, hey, this is coming, we want to do it, and get their reaction before they have to just be reactive to all the planned ideas or proposals.
Well, I would say, I mean, just from my own perspective, it's always easier for me to react to something written, something I can think about and mark up, than it is to be asked open-ended questions about how, how do you feel about this, or what about that? So I'm comfortable putting together enough detail that it lets people know the direction we're thinking of heading in, but not set in stone, so that, because again, given my career working with radioactive waste management, nothing worse than asking people for input and then ignoring it because you've already decided on what you're going to do, what the policy is, or what the program is going to be. So I'm very sensitive to that, and I want to make sure that whatever input we get it at in a time frame that allows us to actually incorporate it, and and it's not last minute or anything like that.
Well, just a minute. Well, that was my only reaction, is that with the time frame is pretty short. So if you're asking for input, you're only talking a month or two, well, month and a half. So again, the timeline that Kermit and I have both been talking about is pretty tight here. And again, I think the goals are great. I think this is really important. I think we've heard enough people on the public comments really saying we need to do something in this area. So I would be actually curious to see if Kevin or others that, well, I guess he's not here anymore. He's going to his wife's birthday party. But I'm wondering, do we think this is what the public is asking us to do? Are you feeling?
Well, I mean, again, I go back to this one right here, council directive from December of 2021. So in approaching the staff, I would absolutely not say this is something that the sustainability committee wants to do. I would say we were told to do this, and that's why we're doing it. That's why it made it into the sustainable city plan, because council directed us to update the sustainable purchasing policy.
And to your point, as expressed in this document, Lisa, this is something that we've already said we're going to do. This policy is a question of how, not necessarily what. Right? We have city endorsed policies that tell us where we need to be.
Yes, and we just need to figure out the best way to help staff get to where we want to be. Because if the staff isn't getting us there, who will? We need them to get to these goals that council has established.
Right. And to your point, Lisa, we do need them, and I'm not going to rehash here, but I have seen and I have experienced, not doing the proper input, and then people just dig in, or can sometimes just dig their heels in only because they weren't consulted.
Mhm. Yep.
So I think so. Kermit, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to note that we've learned one thing that doesn't work, and that is what we did back in 2017 and came up with this nice document, and we rolled it out, we presented it, we handed it out. And so what we do this time needs to be different from that.
Good point.
Okay. Well, do we have any other comments on, comments, and do people feel like doing what Lisa suggests at the end, which is I don't see, I think it's on the, maybe the next page. But you know, do we feel like approving the concept and the general timeline? Do people, you know, if someone wants to make a motion for that, that's a bit, you know, feel free to do that now.
Yes, I would approve the concept. I mean, I think it's definitely needed. And like has been said many times, it's been asked for. We're up to the how now. It's like, we've already voted as a, you know, common council already said do this, and now we're at how, so this is how. So yes.
Okay, so are you making a formal motion? Do you want to make a
Yeah.
motion?
So how do I do that? I make a motion that we do this.
That we
How do you
approve
say
the
it?
concept and general timeline? Yeah, go ahead. Kermit's better at this.
I was going to offer something. I move that we approve the Middleton Sustainable Purchasing Policy and Plan 2023 update as a working document to pursue and implement a new and improved sustainable purchasing plan for the city of Middleton. Is that close, Laura?
Yes, that works. Those are the right words.
Would you like to second it, Laura, then? Say-
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Hi,
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No. Okay, good.
thank you all.
Good job, Lisa. Thank you for that. Lisa worked very hard on that, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so now Kelly, if you wouldn't mind throwing up the agenda again, or just mentioning what the next item is. Sustainable Middleton Award. There's been a lot of fun things going on with this group. So I think you'll all be excited to hear an update.
Yeah, can I share my screen? I just want to show one thing. I can't tell. Can you see this or not?
We see you, Dick.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share it again. I'm not share screen. Are you still seeing just me?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, okay, I went too fast. I got to now it says share.
There you go.
Okay, now I want to show this. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the award certificate that we've come up with. We've had a few things that our subgroup has looked at, and this is the one we're currently using. It really focuses on the motif of the Middleton logo. And if you get on their website or somewhere, somebody sent me a document of what all these different things mean, like the little red is a diamond, the little white, the yellow stuff means wheat for our ag roots, the green means nature, whatever. So this is a certificate that will be written in a way or designed in a way that we can enter in different names for the environmental company or individuals. And obviously the smaller text in italics will write some kind of short blurb of what it was that the recipient did, and we'll change the year in the future. Deb will give you information on the budget, but the idea is that we are going to mount for businesses and organizations that would get a plaque. We have found some cherry wood that Mark Wegner of the forestry unit for group for the city has stacked and stored for many years over at the recycling center. So we're going to make out plaques, and Rick Eilerston, who's done a tremendous amount of work helping us with this, has arranged to have somebody actually plane the wood, plane meaning taking the roughness out of it, and then have somebody else cut it up and edge it and polish, sand it, and we'll be getting all that done for nothing. And then we're having Alpha Graphics, which has done our parade banners, and the parade banner from last year, and the the car static cling sign. We'll mount these with on that sustainable wood. This wood is actually coming from one of our forests in the city that were down. So these were down trees or cherry trees, and they were all cut up into nice rough boards. So we're reusing that. We're going to use recycled polycarbonate cover to put over this plaque, this certificate on the plaque, which will be 2 inches wider on each side. So these will be handed out for businesses at the April Chamber of Commerce. For individuals like homeowners, property owners, will get the same certificate. Will have their names, might be a husband and wife, they'll get their names on it. They will be handed the certificate, but no plaque, but they will be given a $50. Our thinking is what we're arranging, and we've already checked with the Chamber of Commerce, we'll be getting a $50 gift certificate to spend somewhere in Middleton. Hopefully they go out in a restaurant or something, but that's the idea. So we just wanted to show you what we've come up with. My daughter Maya, who has done 2 or 3 other jobs for us, did the celebration that Lisa arranged last summer. She did work for that, and she did some other work for us as a school project. And I'm not even sure if there was a 3rd job that she did under contract, but as Deb and I put together the things we wanted to say on the plaque, and then I met with Maya, and she's working at a local company, but she does a little freelance on the side. So this is what we came up with. So maybe before we take any more comments about the whole thing, Deb, you want to talk about the logistics of how we're going to get the award nominees reviewed? Oh, and Kelly, you should tell us, maybe you could tell us how many we've gotten so far. I'm aware of maybe a couple more coming in that would be coming in by the deadline tomorrow. And I don't view this quite like Deb does. She thinks as a teacher, if you don't get your homework on time, you go from an A to an F. But if it dribbles over a couple days, I'm a little more forgiving on the homework assignment. Maybe I was one of those kind of kids that had that problem. But so anyway, Kelly, you want to tell us how many award nominations we've got so far? And then Deb want to tell us more about the process and the cost and all that.
We've received 5 really great nominations from companies or organizations in the school district, but no individuals yet.
Okay, Deb, you want to tell about any?
I think you're on mute, Deb.
I'm trying to, guys, should I stop sharing screen so I can see back? Yeah.
Deb appears unmuted, but maybe her microphone is turned off.
Yeah, now she's back. Yeah, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Okay, why don't I pick up here, Deb? Sorry, we can't hear you. It's only going to cost us, we were estimating a total of about $1,000 for all of this. We're getting the wood for free. We're getting all the milling and the cutting and the plaque stuff that Rick has arranged with his, I don't know, it was his uncle and some friends, do all that for free. We're gonna give them 2 of the gift certificates, are the only thing they would even take. And so anyway, it's a really, I think it's going to be a great program. And while we haven't got a lot of community individual nominees, hopefully we'll get a couple, because we've been out beating the bush on that. But I think the business community is definitely responding, and we're going to have quite a a nice plaque to hand out, so. Anything more, Deb, that you wanted for me to say or not? Can you do sign language? Can't hear you, sorry.
Okay.
Go, any feedback or comments people want to make, so we can move on?
Kermit,
For the certificate, one thought that crossed my mind was whether, and maybe you're already planning this, but having some kind of signature space for, like, maybe the mayor and the chair of the sustainability committee or the sustainability coordinator to kind of, a lot of award certificates like that often have signatures that kind of make it official, so it's not just something somebody printed off of their computer. So that's one thought I'd recommend considering. I'm not hung up particularly on who, but I think it should be somebody significant from the sustainability side and from the city government side. And I know that I don't hope this isn't too flippant of a suggestion, but maybe even giving, you said there are a lot of people that are, a number of people that are doing some donated work for us, like the working with sustainable wood to turn it into a sustainable plaque. Maybe that would be something to express appreciation for with the sustainability award. Just a thought. I've thrown it out there for you guys to think about, but it seems like that might be appropriate. A small step and an individual.
Well, I think we definitely want to show our appreciation. We've talked, let me just give you some more information. We have a subgroup that will be judging this, and we've kind of written it into what we feel are the rules for doing this. So the month of February, we're going to meet maybe in the middle of the month. I think we've got a meeting set up for the 17th. There's going to be 5 of us that we're considering that will always be the Kelly, and it will always be the Sustainability Committee Chair. And then for this go around, it'll be Deb and myself and Rick. So we're going to have 5 people that will be judging the nominations. And then we'll have the month of February. We might have to get back to individual nominees to get more information so that we can figure out what it is we're actually going to put on the plaque and get that cleaned up. So we'll have the month of March so that Alpha Graphics can actually print the certificates and do the mounting. And each certificate obviously will have to be individual written for that particular awardee. We did discuss, Kermit, the idea of having, my daughter actually suggested it, putting the mayor's name on it to make it an official thing. And Deb and my quick reaction, and I think, I'm not sure where Rick was on this because he's been responding a lot to our emails. Christy, I think you've been out skiing a lot, so we weren't always getting you. And
Yes.
Kelly, and Kelly's been swamped with all her projects, so she wasn't always responding to every little thing we were suggesting. But we were thinking that, well, Gurdeep's leaving right around the 1st of April, and we're handing these things out. And do we want to have Christie's name as the sustainability chair? And I think you did respond on that, Christy, that you weren't particularly interested in that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember responding, but that's accurate in how I feel about that.
Yeah. So it feels like if we're going to have anybody's signature, I guess it would have to be the mayor. And then that would have to be written, I'll have to have Maya create a little text box in the corner that would have a changeable name in it, because the mayors are going to change obviously over time. I guess if we really feel strongly that to make this a real certificate that has been is real, and we need a signature like the mayor on it and have that printed out in a script that he would have to write for this time around. And if that's a really strong recommendation or just a suggestion, I guess I will be interested in hearing other people's thoughts on it. We've gotten Kermit. So Lisa, you had your hand up and
Yes, I had my hand up for a different thing, but I'll say that I do think it would be nice to have the mayor's signature on it. It kind of makes it more official than just printing a certificate out. So that's just my 2 cents. And if you know the date on which you plan to present these, you can always adjust who the, decide once you've set the date, if it's after the swearing in, then you go with the new mayor's signature. I was going to.
let me just respond to that
Go
quickly.
ahead. Mhm.
I would hate to have we have to prepare these things and mount them. And this date business could be fluid. Now, we could just say when the mayor signs it, let's just say, for example, he signs it the 1st of March, once we've decided who gets the award, but this handing out of the certificate might not occur. Well, we're thinking April 6th, but Chamber of Commerce is only giving us 3 minutes on the agenda. And we've got 5 awards to hand out, and we asked for more time and they said, no, we can't give it to you. They've already told us that. So we've got a problem right away of knowing when it is we're going to do it. We may end up deciding, the Chamber of Commerce, hey, this isn't working out so well, maybe we'll do it at a city council meeting or something, so the actual date of when this is handed out, that's going to be a problem. But maybe we could have it when the mayor signs it or whatever. Can we, before you go on to any more comments, Lisa, can I just get a sense from the other committee members how strongly they feel that we do need the mayor's signature on it? I know Kermit's there, Lisa's on it, Dominic, Christy, Laura particularly, and I'm going to scroll down to remind myself, Kelsey, and Shreya, and Scott. Yeah. So I'd be curious what other, maybe we should let you take over, Christy, and find out what the rest of the committee feels on this. 'Cause
Yeah. I mean, for me, it'd be very nice to have. If there's some reason we can't do it, okay. But let's say, Laura, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be nice. And, like you say, getting the signature, it's not that hard to do. You get a picture of it and you drop it in, and then you could just replace that picture each year when you need to update it. So yes, I think it adds to the official feeling of the award.
Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Shreya and Kelsey, any feedback, comments on that?
Nothing besides what others have said. It seems more official.
Yeah, I agree with Kelsey.
Okay. Okay, who
And
did I miss?
Dominic.
Yeah, mayor signature if possible, but if not possible, don't let it hang up the awards program.
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay, Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask a question of the team that's going to be reviewing these applications. So I would like to nominate some residents of the Misty Valley neighborhood. I don't know if anybody's ever walked up by Graber Pond Conservancy, but if you cross High Road, there's something called the Keneal Corner Conservancy, which is land that the Homeowners Association requested the city give to them. It's just like a little corner. And they've turned it into a little conservancy. There was a dedication ceremony a couple years ago. Recently, a young man received an award at a proclamation from the mayor at a council meeting for all of his work in getting his Eagle Scout badge. He's got like a bazillion merit badges, and one of the badges he got was for putting in a couple of little lending libraries, one of which is in this Keneal Corner Conservancy. So my question is, since this was like a group effort, it's not one person who did it, but it is I think, a phenomenal example that I would love to see other neighborhoods follow. How would you suggest I submit that nomination? Do I name the people? Do I name the committee? What
But
would you
if it's
suggest?
the homeowners association, wouldn't that, they're a nonprofit, right? So wouldn't that just be any standard nonprofit? If you did it with the whole association, I don't know if you want to do that.
I see it as something that was probably driven by individuals to have the homeowners association do it. And Kelly, maybe I see you nodding. I think you're aware of this group, and maybe you were on the Conservancy Lands Committee when this first came up.
One way I could see it, because we have the, who gets the award, as well as the homeowners association, maybe. And then underneath it, we write this description of what it is that the award was given for. And that would be, you know, a 2-line description. I don't know if you want to share my screen or not, but it's underneath the big name of who got it.
Mhm.
And it describes what it's given for. So that's where we would say for the preparation of this conservancy and the implementation of 2 library boxes, what, you know, where you call them. So the description can be specific to how it's given. And I suppose it's possible to recognize a real leader in that description, but the award, I think in your case, would not necessarily go to an individual. It would have to be from the organization that was sponsoring it. Now, this award is going to go on another year. We don't, if, you know, if the nomination is just going to take too long to get done by the end of January, people have known about this for 2 months. So I would say it's, you know, think about it for next year. We don't, you know, we don't have to capture them all this year. So that's my quick reaction. Christy, you want to have more? Deb, you can't talk yet, or what's going on?
I would actually say, I'm looking at the time, and while I would love to discuss this more, I really want to give Dominic a chance to give any updates if possible. And then Shreya, you know, you've been patiently waiting as well. So Dick, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, I might wrap this up. Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you. Any actions we had to take on this, or are we good with the discussions that we had? I think we are good.
I don't think there's any actions. I'll look into talking with Maya about getting a signature block, and we'll have to talk up maybe with Kelly about how do we get the mayor's signature. I think this current award should go with Mayor Brar's signature, and we'll maybe make it in a March deal or something. We'll have to figure that out. But I feel like this ought to be something that he would be awarding because it was all done under his tenure.
Yep. Okay. Dominic, any updates you have? If you don't have any updates, that's fine too. But if there are things, let us know.
Yeah, so actually Kelly has a nice write-up on a meeting between Optimus Systems and city staff from early January. It was very well attended. I appreciated the support and the participation of Public Works, Kelly and others from the city. Optimus laid out the answer to a number of questions and laid out a pilot program for the city, very expensive pilot program, minimum 5 systems at around 25,000 each. That does not include above ground storage tank to support fueling those assets. So it's a big lift. It's likely going to require grant funding or some big pot of money from someplace. And Kelly kind of has her arms around that. In support of that, a number of Public Works employees were planning to meet with the city of Madison to continue gathering information on this. I'm hoping to circle back and kind of touch base with all the city staff in the various efforts that they are committing to this and try to support them where I can in the next week or two.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Dominic? I was very impressed with the write-up, and it sounds like the meeting went very well, Dominic, and I think that's a testament to you and the way you're approaching this. So well done.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Shreya, we would love to hear anything with the green team.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. We So for the school green teams, I also have committee updates, but for the green team, as of now, we just finished finals last week, so we've been getting back into the groove of things. We are participating in the Trex recycling competition. So we have advisories from all around the school. And what basically the competition is, you collect different types of plastics from each advisory class. And basically the class that has the most different types of plastics collected and the most amount would win a pizza party of sorts. And the school would get $10,000 if we win this competition. So that is something we're working on. And then we are also working on marker recycling and other of our normal committee activities. For our committee, Ms. Pulvermacher, Mr. Lathrop, and Ms. Weitzel and I went to see a composter earlier this month. And so I've been doing a little research on the side myself. I was a little busy with finals, but I just got done. So I've been doing more research on a composter. We went to look at Chester, which I'm not sure if that information was sent out, but Chester is the MATC composter who's in good condition. And we were able to get a tour from the person that's maintaining the composter. And I'm looking at more specific options other than Chester, because we found a few other options that we thought would be better. And I will keep you guys updated on the rest of that. But I think I should have a few options for us to go through by next meeting. Yeah, that's all I have for now.
Okay, perfect. Well, when you're ready, Shreya, and it seems like, am I reading this right? I'm talking to the group here that, we may not be ready for like a formal letter of support or additional communication from the committee in support, which we want to do. But it seems like maybe you need a little more time. We need a little more time on this.
Yes, I think we do. Yeah. Before we go for the school board, I think we need to have like a solid foundation of what we're going to present to them and the exact composter. So I don't want to go to them with like a half done kind of letter of support. So I think we could wait a little more time. Yeah.
Okay, Kelly, Dick, Deb, does that sound right to you? Okay. Thank you so much, Shreya. That's a very helpful update. And that sounds very cool with the plastics. Good luck on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Monarch Pledge, Bird City.
Well, I'm the one who requested that the Monarch Pledge come before this committee. I think it's I hope everyone had a chance to look over the pledge form. The mayor or his designee, which I would assume would be Kelly if we go forward with this, is responsible for filling out the form. Kelly, can you tell me, have we done this before? This seems familiar.
Mayor Brar approached me about doing it, and so I said I'd look into it, and we had Sophia as an intern a couple summers ago, and then she's the one who alerted me to the fact that the deadline was between December and March, so we missed it that year.
Okay.
So it's it's in the back of my mind. My question would be, one thing I have thought about is trying to put things like the Monarch Pledge, Bird City, Tree City stuff on the public lands plate. It's actually what I would love to work on more. But I'm wondering if, like, it used to be public lands would fill out the Bird City stuff, and it takes a really long time, and they seem to be the ones I have to go to anyway for a lot of the information about parks and lands and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if maybe this could be something they work on.
That's fine. Can this committee forward the request to them? Because I'm looking at the form, and it seems like some of the things you have to do at least 3 action items from a particular list. And it seems like we're already doing a lot of these things, and anything new that we would need to add would be something that would fit with something like No Mow May, or other things like in the Sustainable City Plan about like promoting the native plant, gardening with native plants. So how do we need to make a motion to ask Public Lands, Recreation and Forestry to take this up?
Yeah, that would be great. If you can make that motion and then it will be on their next agenda.
All right, I'll make a motion that the Sustainability Committee ask Public Lands, Recreation and Forest. Wait, what's the name of the committee? It's the Parks, Recreation and Forestry Lands, PR.
PFRC, Parks, Forestry, Recreation. Oh, what is it? Yeah, and then there's also the Conservancy Lands Committee.
Which one do you think would be more appropriate?
I don't know. I haven't read through all the bullet points.
It's all about butterflies. So, and changing ordinances, milkweed. It sounds like actually something that I think I'm going to make the motion that we refer this to Parks, Recreation and Forestry Lands. I'm going to guess that's the name, because they're bigger. So I'm gonna move that we forward this Monarch pledge to them and copy the mayor and ask them to consider it before the March 31st deadline.
Deb, we see you, we just can't hear you.
I think
Is
Deb
Deb
seconded.
seconding? Was that a second? She's
Second,
seconding.
okay,
Deb is seconding.
thank you. You do sign language. We do. Okay, all right, so we need to wrap up, so
Right, I
now.
think-
We need to vote.
Sorry,
to
I'm sorry. Yes, vote. The Robert's rules are, I don't know if I'll. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And can I throw in one more thing about garden monarchs and stuff? I have heard a lot of residents seem to complain to City Hall about this, what the front looks like. I don't know if anybody ever goes to City Hall, but it's native landscaping. And I have heard through the grapevine that there are concerns from residents about how bad it looks. I would love to have a lot of residents contact City Hall to say, hey, thank you so much for planting native plants. It's really important. And we should keep them there, because if we don't speak up, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And unfortunately, the grease in this case is going to be scaling back on some of those native plantings. So just
One thing I've read, and we can't talk about it more at this meeting, but one thing I've read is that when there's a sign out front about what it is, then I don't know if there is one there, but that really changes the whole conversation, even just a sign explaining it. So we could talk about that.
I was going to suggest the same thing, Christy, getting an information plaque up.
Yeah, and maybe that's something we partially fund or something. You know, that's for the group to decide.
I think that's a good idea. 4 years ago, or at least before, I think most people were on this committee, the Sustainability Committee complained about that. So nothing's been done for a long time about how bad that looks out front. So maybe some of our own money to help fund something as a stimulus. Good idea.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So one thing for now, we go to, I think we have to move this quickly to standing agenda items. So again, we got to keep this fast, but Kelly, if you could add an agenda item for next time for Scott's working on a potential grant for native plants with ATC. So if you could put that on there. Kelly, is there any way we can, all these great comments in the chat, can we get those like sent to us after, or that would be fabulous. Because once the Zoom goes away on any Zoom, I never know how to get those. Okay, thank you. Any other standing agenda items for next time that anyone wants to bring up now?
Let's prioritize the committee work initiatives that we didn't get to this time, so that we at least get to them every other month, if not every month.
Good.
I agree. And I would also mention for the events, the Good Neighbor Festival, Kathy Kuntz, I think Kelly maybe put this in or mentioned it somewhere. Kathy Kuntz really talked up how good the Sustainability Committee is when she spoke to the Committee of the Whole on Friday. And that was great. And one of the things she singled us out for was how we do outreach to the public. And she specifically mentioned that we have a booth at the Good Neighbor Festival about information to people. And so I made a note in my margins, we should think about having a booth at the Good Neighbor Festival this year, which is actually a really good idea because we're going to have information that we can share about the Inflation Reduction Act money that's available to people. So we'll have some real tangible, useful things that we could hand out. And I just throw that out there for discussion next time.
Thank you. Okay, if there's anything else, please say very quickly. And if not, I would love a motion to adjourn. And thank you so much, everyone.
I'll move, we adjourn.
Second.
Deb seconds.
Deb seconds.
Okay, do we all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? I don't hear any nays. Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Yeah.
Thank
Night.
you.
Have a good night.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.